Let's roll the tape. Are we rolling? Okay. Rabbi Say, we're on Daf Hey Amid Aleph on the 5th line. Yesterday we saw the Shita of Rav, which was ultimately rejected with the words Tiyufta de Rav Tiyufta. But what was the Rav Shita? Rav held that the Minchas HaOmer that's done Shelo Lishma on the 16th of Nisan is totally puzzle. Even though normally menachos that are done Shelo Lishma are Ola L'Shem, are kosher, but are just not Ola L'Shem Ba'alav. But here he says it's totally puzzle. Why? Because its function is as a machshir, not as a mechaber. Right? It's there to permit you to engage in certain activity or resume certain activity. It's to be mater chadash, and since it can't be mater chadash, it's totally puzzle. The Gemara rejected that. The Gemara brought from a brisa that even a korban that is a machshir, that permits activity, is not totally puzzle just because it was done Shelo Lishma. So now we're moving on from that, but we're still discussing the Minchas HaOmer. Now we're going to see a Shita of Reish Lakish, which is different from the Shita of Rav. So, Reb Shimon ben Lakish Omar, Minchas HaOmer shekamsu Shelo Lishma kishera, v'shireha eina echalim ad shetavi Minchas HaOmer acheres v'tati rena. So, Reish Lakish is of the following opinion. If you do, the Minchas HaOmer is done Shelo Lishma, this barley grain that you bring to be Matir Chadash, it's done Shelo Lishma. So it wasn't Matir Chadash because it was Shelo Lishma. However, it's still a kosher korban. You commence with the offering of the komets on the Mizbeach, but the Kohanim are not allowed to eat the Shirayim. They're not allowed to eat the leftover flour that's left over after the Kemitza. Why? Because this korban, this barley is chadash, and the korban was not matir chadash because it was done shelo lishma. So what needs to be done? You need to bring a second minchas ha'omer, and only after bringing the second minchas ha'omer will the shirayim of the first mincha and the shirayim of the second mincha be permitted to the kohanim. So the Gemara now says, but wait a minute, mekarev heichi karva mimashke Yisrael min hamuter li Yisrael! Exclamation point. But one second, if the komets is not kosher yet because it's still chadash, then how can it be placed on the mizbeach? We have a pasuk in Yecheskel that says that any libation or any kind of vegetable offering that's placed on the mizbeach has to be what's called mashke Yisrael, which means that it has to be edible or consumable by the Jewish people. Which means that if it's not kosher for a human to consume, then it can't be placed on the Mizbeach. So what right do you have to place this komets on the Mizbeach if it's still usher because of chadash to a human? So Amar Rav Ada bar Ahava, Kesavar Reish Lakish, Ein mechusar zman labo bayom. Very interesting shita, says Rav Ada. Reish Lakish is of the opinion that since you will be imminently be offering a second Minchas HaOmer that will permit chadash, we look at it as if, since it's going to be done on the same day, that we look at the whole day as chadash is now mutter. Even though you haven't done the trigger action to be matir chadash, but since it's going to be imminently done today, we consider it as if it's already done, since it's bo bayom, it's on the same day. So, and therefore the komets is no longer chadash, the komets is mutter. So, then the question, of course, would be, well, then why can't you eat the shirayim? Well, perhaps it could be midarabanan, you can't eat it, whatever. In other words, we'll have to deal with that.
Why don't we say Yom Hanef Kula Asur? You have to wait till the next day.
You're bringing in a Gemara from an external source, right? Which that's only a takanas chachamim, you understand.
From the Mishnah,
right? Yeah, but it's a takanas chachamim. They were misaking that, but midioraisa. Yeah. Now, Masiv Rav Ada Bereita Rav Yitzchak Yesh Ba'ofos She'ein B'menachos Yesh B'menachos She'ein Ba'ofos. So Rav Ada brings a kasha on Reish Lakish's shita. He's basically, so what are you telling me? You're telling me that a mincha that is currently not kosher but will become kosher later in the day is considered kosher right now, right? That's essentially what you're saying. Mm-hmm. So the Brisa now says that there are halachos that apply to bird offerings that do not apply to meal offerings, and vice versa. So yesh ba'ofos Shaha'ofos boin benidvas shnayim u'mechusare kapara v'hutro michlal isuran bakodesh. So here are three unique features by birds that do not apply, masha'inkin b'menachos, do not apply by menachos. Number one, a bird can be brought by two people and not just one. That's not true by a mincha. Mincha can only be brought by one person, cannot be brought in partnership. It can be brought as a mechusar kapara, which means that when you want to alleviate your tumah through the bringing of a korban, you can bring a bird, but we never find that a mincha is used to alleviate a person's tumah, and to allow him to re-engage in kodshim. And finally, v'hutru michlali suran b'kodesh. And finally, there's a unique feature by birds that there is a certain action that you do with a bird that makes it usable for the mizbeach that is completely unusable for human consumption. What is that? That's the bird. How do you kill the bird for a korban? Malika. So that's v'hutru michlal isurin b'kodesh. In other words, normally that would be usr, that would render the bird usr for a human. But for a korban, it's kosher, right? So this third feature is something that we have to keep in mind. What the Brisa is basically saying is that only by bird sacrifices do you have such a phenomenon that when you do it for a bird, for a korban, it's kosher. When you would do it for a human, it's non-kosher, right? And that's not true by menachos. That's not true by menachos. There's no such phenomenon as an action that is done with a mincha that makes it kosher for the mizbeach, but makes it non-kosher for a human. Now, the Brisa continues. V'yesh b'menachos shahamenachos tu'unos kli u'tenufa v'hagasha v'yeshnon b'tzibur kibiyachid ma she'en kein ba'ofos. Now, here are the unique features of menachos that do not apply to birds. A mincha requires a utensil in its service. You have to put it in a container. A bird does not have to be put into a container, and you don't even need a kli to slaughter it. You can use the kohen's fingernail, right? The mincha requires waving. You have to wave it in all 6 directions. It requires hagasha. You have to bring the container that has the meal offering and touch it against the mizbeach. V'yeshnon b'tzibur kibiyachid. And finally, menachos can be either individual offerings or they can be communal offerings as well. Right, so that means that, like, say, for example, the Minchas HaOmer is a communal offering. It's not an individual offering. But by Ophos, there's no such thing as a requirement of a Kli. You don't have to do Tenufa, you don't have to do Hagasha, and there's no such thing as a communal bird offering. There's communal animal offerings, there's communal meal offerings, but there's no communal bird offerings. V'im Isa b'menach. So that's the end of the Brisa. The Gemara's question from this Brisa is, V'im Isa b'menachos nami mishkachas la dehutru michlal isurin b'kodesh umaynihu minchas ha'omer. So the Gemara says, according to you, Reish Lakish, I can show you an example by menachos as well as by birds, where it's only permitted in its current state for the mizbeach, but not permitted for humans. And what is that? When you bring the komets of a minchas ha'omer that was done shelo lishma, the komets is still chadash, but we permit it for the mizbeach, even though it's not permitted for human consumption. So why does the Brisa say that only applies by birds, but it doesn't apply by menachos? It's a kasha on you, Reish Lakish. So the Gemara says, no. Kevin de'ein mechusar zman lebo bayom lavi surahu. So the Gemara says, no. Since it's imminently going to become no longer usr, we view it as no longer usr right now. In other words, the Gemara's havamina was, maybe it's still usr, but a special dispensation is given for a korban. That's not the way you look at it. We look at it as mamish as if it's mutter now, because it's the kosher korban ha'omer is about to be brought in an hour, so therefore we look at this komets of the first omer offering as being totally permitted as well. And therefore it doesn't fit the criterion of the birds where malika is totally no good for human consumption. Now, Masiv Rav Sheshes. So now Rav Sheshes says, let me bring you a different brisa. Hikdim matan shemen la matan dam, yimla enu shemen v'yachzor v'yitein shemen achar matan dam. Period. If we're talking about a mitzorah here, the purification process of a mitzorah is that you have to slaughter different animals for his purification, and you take the blood of one of the animals and you place it on his ear, his thumb, and his big toe. Right? Remember and then afterwards, you take oil, you pour the oil on the hand of the Kohen then sprinkles the oil 7 times, and then places the remaining oil that's in his palm on the ear, the thumb, and the big toe of the mitzorah. So first he places the blood, and then he places the oil on those very same places. The Brisa discusses what would be the law if a person reversed the protocol and first placed the oil and then placed the blood. So the Brisa says, no good. You have to redo the oil because the oil always has to come on top of the blood. It cannot be placed on the ear, thumb, and toe first. It has to be placed after the blood. So that's the first statement of the Brisa. And then, matan bahomos achar matan zayin matan bahonos lematan sheva, yimlaenu shemen v'yachzor v'yitain matan bahomos achar matan sheva. And similarly, if a Kohen reversed the protocol, and before sprinkling the oil 7 times as he was supposed to do, he first put the oil on the Mitzora's ear, thumb, and big toe. In other words, he reversed the order. So then he's got to go back after sprinkling the oil and redo the placement of the oil on the ear, the thumb, and the big toe. So that's the conclusion of the Brisa. So the Gemara's question is, if you're telling me that anything that's being done on the self-same day is viewed sacrificially as if it's already done, so what's the big deal? You did one first, you did one second. It shouldn't matter. If we're saying by the Mincha Sa'omer, since you're going to be offering a kosher kometz momentarily, we look at it as if it's already done, then what difference does the order make? Let's say, like if you put the blood first and then you put the oil first and then you put the blood second, what's the big deal? We look at it as if the blood was already done. In other words, the order doesn't matter, shouldn't matter. So Amar of Papa, Shiny Hilchos Mitzora Dichsiva Behu Havaya. The Amar Akasav Zos Tia Tarasa Mitzora, Tihye Bahavyasa Tehei. So Rav Papa says the laws of Mitzora are an exception to the rule. Really, Reish Lakish is correct that order and protocol over the course of one day doesn't really matter, because anything that's going to be done today, we look at it as if it's already done. So the order is not of consequence, except when it comes to the protocols of a mitzorah. Because there the Torah says, Zos tihiyeh Torah mitzorah. That word tihiyeh means it must be just so. There's a requirement of exactitude of protocol, dafka, when it comes to a mitzorah. And therefore, if you reverse the order by a mitzorah, you got to do a redo. But that doesn't apply by others.
So what happens on Yom Kippur? The whole avoda. So it has to be more.
Okay, so but the question is b'di'evid. That's really the question. We'd have to go through Maseches Yom and find out. That I'm sure invariably the Gemara probably discusses what happens if you missed it, if you messed it up. Masiv Rav Papa hiktim chataso la'ashamo lo yihiyeh acher mimareis bedama elatat te'ubar tzuras of eteitze lebeis hasreifa. So Rav Papa, who was the one who just explained that Mitzorah is unique, now asks another question from the laws of Mitzorah. Normally, you're supposed to shecht the korban asham first and bring that, and then you're supposed to shecht the korban chatas and bring it. What happens if by accident the Kohen first shechts the animal that was designated as the chatas? So you might think, oi, I shechted the chatas, I made a mistake, let me put that animal on hold, we'll put the blood in a temporary utensil and stir it so that it doesn't coagulate, and let's go now and shech the asham, do that, and then we'll come back to the chatas. So the Brisa says, no, you can't do that. I'm sorry, you broke with protocol, and therefore the chatas has to be discarded. You can't burn it immediately on today because the animal is still a kosher korban. So you have to leave its carcass in the courtyard until tomorrow, until now it becomes pasul belina. It's no longer usable as a korban, and then you take it to the Beis HaSreifa, you take it to a place of burning pasul korbanos, and you discard it, because you can't use that animal anymore because it was shechted against protocol before the korban asham. So the Gemara says, Amai kamosiv Rav Papa, Rav Papa hu da'amar shani hilchos mitzorah dichsiva behu havaya. So the Gemara says, 1 second, Rav Papa, why are you asking this as a challenge to Reish Lakish? You yourself just got through saying that the protocols of Mitzorah are unique because of the word Zos Tia Torah Mitzorah. So it's not surprising that the order is necessary in the laws of Mitzorah, but that shouldn't be reflective of any other sacrificial law. So what's your problem? So the Gemara answers, Ela Rav Papa Hachi Kakashale, Ema Hani Mili Avoda, Shchita Lav Avodahi. V'ein mechusar zman labo bayom yehei acher mimareis b'dama v'likarev asham v'hada likarev chatas. Rav Papa's issue is like this. I grant you Zos tihiyah Toras HaMitzorah, that's written in the Torah, teaches me that the protocol must be exact in a specific sequence and a specific order. But that's only the avoda. Shchita is not avoda. And how do I know that shchita is not avoda? Because it could be done by a non-kohen. So therefore, just because the Torah requires the avoda protocol to be in sequence, doesn't mean that the shchita has to be in sequence. So why does the Brisa say that just because you shechted the chatas first, you have to discard it? It's not even a part of the avoda. So what do you see from here? That even non-avoda issues, that even when you don't have a pasuk of Zos tihiyah Toras HaMitzorah, sequence is necessary protocol for all karbanos. And don't tell me, Reish Lakish, that it's not a big deal that you can place the komets on the mizbeach because you're about to offer another minchas ha'omer. That doesn't make sense. And therefore, Ella Amar Rav Papa, Hainu Taima de Reish Lakish, the Kesavar Heir Mizrach Matir, the Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish, the Amri Toravayu, Afilu Bizman Shebeis Hamikdash Kayam, Heir Mizrach Matir. So the Gemara says, Rav Papa is not discarding Reish Lakish. Rav Papa is basically saying you did not explain Reish Lakish correctly. Reish Lakish says that the reason why you can put the komets that's chadash on the mizbeach and commence with its offering, even though the mincha was done shalol lishma, and therefore the komets is still usher because of chadash, is not because you're about to offer a second mincha, but rather it's because the komets became permitted with the strike of dawn. Because Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan are of the opinion that even when there's a temple, you don't need to actually offer the korban ha'omer in order to be matir chadash, in order for chadash to be permitted. All that is necessary is the arrival of the dawn of the 16th of Nisan, and that automatically, ipso facto, makes all chadash permitted. And therefore, even if I didn't do the korban ha'omer correctly, such that the korban has not had its desired effect, the komets is not prohibited because of chadash anymore, because it's being brought after dawn. And that's the reason why Reish Lakish says that the komets can be offered. Perhaps you can't eat the shirayim, that might be a rabbinic law, or that might be whatever reason why you can't eat the shirayim. But at the end of the day, Reish Lakish says, or maybe because the korban is not ola l'shem chova, it wasn't properly done. But at the end of the day, the komets is a permitted komets. It's consumable for humans. Now, v'hader Reish Lakish lav beferish itmar ela michlala itmar. Now, Reish Lakish never made that statement that even during temple times, dawn of the 16th permits chadash, but it's inferred from something else that he once said. Ditnan ein mevian menachos ubikurim kodem laomer. That's the way that they changed the girsa. There are two trigger dates on the Jewish calendar having to do with agriculture. One is the 16th of Nisan, and one is Shavuos. Because the 16th of Nisan is when you bring the Minchas HaOmer, which permits everyone to eat Chadash. It permits human beings to eat Chadash. On Shavuos, there's another trigger date, which is that you cannot bring a Mincha on the Mizbeach from new grain, even though Chadash was already permitted on the 16th, but it only permitted Chadash for human consumption. But you're not allowed to bring Chadash for the Mizbeach until you bring the Shtei Halechem, the 2 loaves of bread that are brought on Shavuos and waved over the Mizbeach. It's a special Gzeras HaKosov, which we're not going to get into in depth today, but those are the 2 trigger dates. So the Mishnah this Mishnah appears later on. We'll learn it a little bit more about it later on, that if you bring Menachos and Bikurim, you're not allowed to bring those, at least lechatchila, you have to wait until the Shtei Halechem are brought on Shavuos. And therefore, the Mishnah says that you're not allowed to bring them, certainly you can't bring them before the 16th of Nisan when the Omer is being brought. V'im hevi kasher. But b'di'eved, even if you bring it all the way early, even before the 16th of Nisan, b'di'eved it's kosher. V'amar Reb Yitzchak, Amar Reish Lakish, I'm sorry, I missed a line. Ein mevi'in menachos ubikurim kodem la'omer, v'im hevi pasol. B'di'eved, if you brought them before the 16th of Nisan, they're going to be pasol. Now, kodem l'shtei halechem lo yavi, and menachos and bikurim may not be brought before Shavuos either, But the difference is v'im hevi kosher. But b'di'evet, if you did bring a mincha or bikurim, your first fruits, you brought them to the temple before Shavuos, they would still be accepted b'di'evet. In other words, lechatchila, you have to wait for the shtei halechem on Shavuos. But b'di'evet, if you didn't, it's still, the mincha is still kosher and the bikurim is still kosher. But to bring it before you bring the mincha sa'omer, that even b'di'evet is not kosher. Now, v'amar Rabbi Yitzchak amar Reish Lakish lo shanu ela be'arbasar v'chamishasar aval b'shishasar im hevi kosher. And comes along Reish Lakish and says that when do we say that even b'di'evet your mincha and your bikurim are not kosher? If you brought it before the 16th of Nisan, because you brought it, let's say, on the 14th of Nisan, on the 15th of Nisan, then even b'di'evet it's possible. But if you brought it on the 16th before the bringing of the mincha sa'omer, then b'di'evet it's kosher. Why? So because you see, alma kesavar heir hamizrach matir. Because you see that Reish Lakish holds it's not, the criterion is not dependent upon the actual bringing of the mincha sa'omer, but rather of the arrival of dawn on the 16th. And that's why if you bring it on the 16th, b'di'evet it's kosher, because at least chadash was matired through the arrival of the dawn. Now, that concludes the Shita of Reish Lakish. So yesterday we saw the Shita of Rav, which was upgeschlagt. Today we saw the Shita of Reish Lakish, that the mincha that's done shelo lishma is still kosher, but you have to bring a second korban hamincha. And now we have the third Shita, which is the Shita of Rava. And Rava amar mincha sa'omer shakamsa shelo lishma kshera, v'shira ha'ne'echalin, ve'ena tzricha mincha sa'omer acheres lahatira, she'ein machshava mo'eles el b'mishiroy la'avoda, uvedover haroy la'avoda, uvemokam haroy la'avoda. So Rava's statement is, if I did the mincha sa'omer shelo lishma, no problem. My machshava has not in any way tainted this mincha sa'omer. Why? Because a mincha sa'omer is different from a standard mincha, and when we talk about a machshava or tainting in any way, any kind of korban or any kind of mincha, it has to be a normative kind of mincha. And if you have a departure from the norm, the machshava, that the malformed machshava that you have, will not passel the mincha. And Rava tells us a general rule. He tells us the general rule is that a malformed machshava will not taint unless it is done by a person who is capable of doing the avoda, and it is an object which is normatively brought as part of the avoda, and it's done in a place which is fit for avoda. So what does he mean? What are those three things? Right? So now we're going to explain. B'mi shiroi la'avoda la'afuke kohen ba'al mum. So the first statement, it has to be, the machshava has to be done by a person who's capable of the avoda, means that if a kohen who's a balmum has a machshava, he doesn't taint the korban that he's working with because he's not fit to do the avoda. That seems pretty self-evident, right? Uvedavar haroi la'avoda la'afuke mincha sa'omer de lo chazya dechideshu. And when it comes to mincha sa'omer, that's something that's not normatively brought as a mincha. And therefore, my machshava that's malformed does not passel the mincha. Why? Because machshava only taints a mincha that is a normative mincha. Korban ha'omer is not normative. Why is it not normative? Number one, it's barley. And number two, it's grain barley. In other words, you don't grind it into a fine flour. You maybe pearl it in some way. I'm not sure, I don't remember exactly how it's processed, but it's not processed into flour. That's the point that Rashi makes, because a mincha sota is also made of barley. So it's not unique only because it's barley. It's unique because it's not only barley, but it's grain barley. It's not flour barley, but it's not barley flour. And so the point is that since this is something that is unique, we never find any other mincha that is brought from barley grain like this. Therefore, a machshava will not passel. That's Rava's unique shita. And finally, the third thing is uvemakam haroi lavoda lafuke nifkam hamizbeach. And finally, let's say it has to be in the right place. So I'm in the Beis Hamikdash, but why is it not the right place? Because I'm having a machshava at a time where the mizbeach is defective. Let's say a chunk of rock breaks off the mizbeach. The mizbeach is now no longer usable. During that period where the mizbeach is not usable, if I have a malformed machshava, that will not in any way taint the korban that I'm working with, because I'm not capable of bringing the korban right now. I have to wait until the mizbeach gets fixed. And therefore, any machshava that I have during that period of waiting for it to get fixed does not in any way taint the avoda that I'm doing. Okay, Tanu Rabban. So now the Gemara says, okay, let's continue along this reasoning of Rava. Kishahu omer min habakar lamata she'ein tamul omar ela lahutzi esat treifa. Period. The Brisa now says as follows. We have a series of psukim dealing with the korban ola, all the way at the beginning of Sefer Vayikra. And it says a number of extraneous words. It says im ola karbano, it says min habakar, and min ha-behema, min ha-bakar, umin ha-tzon. Takrivu es korbanchem. Right? So the Gemara elsewhere says, why do you have to say min ha-behema, min ha-bakar, min ha-tzon? Each one of these words is superfluous in order to teach me a different halacha. Min ha-behema teaches me that it has to be an animal that has not been tainted by bestiality. Min ha-bakar teaches me that it has to be an animal that was not tainted because it wasn't used for idolatry. And min ha-tzon teaches me that it wasn't even designated for idolatry. Now there's another pasuk that comes later that also says min ha-bakar. So what does that extra word teach me, that extra phrase? So the Brisa says it teaches me that the animal that I'm using as a korban cannot be a treifa. The word treifa means it's alive, but it has a mortal injury, and it's worse than just a mum. It's a mortal injury. So in other words, externally, you can't even tell there's anything wrong with it, but once you shecht it and you examine it, you see it has, let's say, tuberculosis. So therefore, that's called a treifa, and it's not fit to be used as a korban. That's what the second time the words min ha-bakar are coming to teach. So the Brisa continues, V'halo dinhu, uma ba'al mum shemuteres lahejot asur legavoa, treifa she'asur lahejot eno din she'asur legavoa. So I'm not sure whether this is still part of the Brisa or not. I think it's now the Gemara speaking. The Gemara says, I don't understand this Brisa. Why do you need a pasuk to tell me that I can't use a treifa as a korban? Isn't it a kal v'chomer? I'm allowed to shecht a balmum and use it for personal consumption, and yet I'm not allowed to consume a treifa. The Torah prohibits a human being from eating a treifa. So surely, when it comes to a korban, where the Torah says that even a balmum is not fit, then surely a treifa should not be fit. So why do you need a pasuk? So the Gemara answers, Chela v'dam yochichu shasur lahejot umutar legavoa. But I'll show you, there are instances where certain things that are prohibited for humans are permitted for the mizbeach. For example, chelev and dam, forbidden fat and blood, are things that are kosher for the mizbeach, but are non-kosher for humans. So therefore, maybe I would have thought that even though something that is treifa, that's non-kosher for humans, would still be kosher for the mizbeach. That's why I need the pasuk. The Gemara is not satisfied. Ma lechelev v'dam shekain boyin michlal heter. Tomar b'treifa shekula asura. V'lo tehemu teres legavoa. But that's not a good analogy. Chelev and dam are components of a kosher animal. So that's maybe the reason why the Torah says they're usable on the mizbeach. But a treifa is not a component of a larger unit of something that's permitted. The totality of the animal is prohibited. So why would I think that that's something that is usable for the mizbeach? So the Gemara says, okay, malika tochiach, shakula isser ve'asur lahejot u'muteres legavoa. So the answer is, okay, what about a bird that had malika? A bird that had malika, the totality of the bird is usher to humans, and it's still mutter to put on the mizbeach. So maybe I would think that a treifa too, even its totality is usher for humans, but maybe it's usable for the mizbeach. No, but mala malika shekein kidushasa osrasa, ma she'ein kein betreifa she'ein kidushasa osrasa. But this is still actually part of the Brisa. This is still the Brisa speaking. The Brisa continues and it says, now wait a minute. That's not a good analogy. Why? Because the Torah prescribes that the way that you make this bird usable for the Mizbeach is through the act of malika. So maybe that's the reason why the Torah says that even though it's not usable for humans, but the very act of malika is the protocol for placing it on the Mizbeach. But there's no such thing as make an animal treifa so that you can use it for the mizbeach. So again, why would I think that a treifa animal is usable for the mizbeach? It's not analogous to anything that we permit for the mizbeach. And then the Brisa concludes by saying, Ve'im heishavta, if you'll come up with some reason why you would think that a treifa is usable, and that's why you need a pasuk. So therefore, kishuhu omer min abakar lamata she'ein tamul lomar. So therefore, when the Torah says those extra words min abakar, there's no reason other than to say lahotzi asa treifa, to tell me that a treifa cannot be used for the mizbeach. End of brisa. So now the Gemara asks the following question: Ma im heishavta? What kind of spar could I have come up with to argue that a treifa should be usable for the mizbeach, such that I need a pasuk to tell me that it's not? So the Gemara, from now until the end of the Amud, we're going to go through different svars. Okay, so Amar Rav mishum diika lemeimar mincha sa'omer tochiach sha'asura lahejot umuteres lagavoa. I could have made the argument from the mincha sa'omer. Now the mincha sa'omer, it is prohibited for a commoner to take a kometz that's chadash. In other words, we're not using the argument of Reish Lakish now, but we're basically saying the kometz is still chadash, and yet we're allowed to place it on the mizbeach, and the act itself of placing it on the mizbeach is what's matir chadash, but I'm still allowed to take it, even though right now when I'm taking it and placing it on the mizbeach, it's not permitted for human consumption. Therefore, I might have argued using the argument of the mincha sa'omer that a treifa also can be placed on the mizbeach. But wait a minute, that's not a good analogy, because mala mincha sa'omer shekein materes chadash. But one second, maybe the whole reason that the Torah allows you to put it on the mizbeach is because the action itself of placing it on the mizbeach is what makes all chadash mutter. And maybe that's the justification for taking something that's not fit for humans and putting it on the mizbeach. But placing a treifa on the mizbeach will not be matir anything, right? So the Gemara says, bashvias. So maybe we're talking about when you bring the mincha sa'omer during a Shemitah year. When you bring a mincha sa'omer during the Shemitah year, it's not permitting you to eat anything, because even non-chadash is prohibited during a Shemitah year. Anything that grew during the Shemitah year is prohibited, right? So there you have an example of the permissibility to bring something, a kometz, that's not permitted for human consumption. It's not coming to be matir anything, and yet it's still placed on the mizbeach. So maybe that's the argument from the mincha sa'omer on a Shemitah year. But wait a minute, shvias nami shekein materes sfichim, bashvias. But 1 second, says the Gemara, even during a Shemitah year, the mincha sa'omer does permit certain things. It permits wildly growing grain, even though you're not allowed to plant grain during Shemitah. But if something grew wildly, you're allowed to harvest it and eat it. And it's chadash until you bring the mincha sa'omer. So it is being matir something even on Shemitah. The Gemara says, no, Rebbe Akiva, do amar sfichin asurin bashvias. But no, we're going like Rebbe Akiva, this brisa, who holds that even wildly growing grain is not permitted for consumption on the Shemitah year, and therefore a mincha sa'omer on Shemitah according to Rebbe Akiva, is not matir anything, and yet the Torah still allows you to place it on the mizbeach, so maybe be a treifa too. Amar le Rav Acha bar Abba le Rav Ashi le Rebbe Akiva nami lifroch ma le mincha sa'omer shekein materes chadash b'chutz la'aretz. But 1 second, even according to Rebbe Akiva, who holds that the mincha sa'omer is not matir sfichin, wildly growing grain, but it's still matir something. It's not matir anything in Eretz Yisrael, but it's matir chadash and chutz la'aretz, where the laws of Shemitah don't apply, and allows me to eat new grain in chutz la'aretz. V'afilu l'man da'amar chadash b'chutz la'aretz lav de'oraisa. And even if you'll make the argument that this brisa is going according to the opinion that there's no prohibition of chadash in chutz la'aretz, which is, by the way, how we paskin. That's what we rely on to allow us to eat chadash in chutz la'aretz. But there's still seemingly an isser derabanan of chadash, which is why it's always better to eat yashan whenever possible. So the question is, if you're going according to that opinion, then the mincha sa'omer is not being matir anything. It's not being matir svichim because of Rebbe Akiva, and it's not being matir chadash in chutz la'aretz because there's no chadash in chutz la'aretz. Shekein ba lahatir lav shebesocha. But at least it's coming to alleviate something. If I take chadash that grew during Shemitah, there are two stigmata that apply to this object. What are they? Number one, it's Shemitah produce, and number two, it's chadash. At least if I bring the mincha sa'omer, it's not that I've made it now kosher, but at least I've removed one of the isurim. I've removed the isur of chadash off of this object. Now maybe that's a unique feature, which is why the Torah allows you to bring it. But that's treifa, there's no association. There's nothing that when you place a treifa animal on the mizbech, you're matir anything, you're alleviating anything. So why are you making this analogy? So Amalei Ravacha midifti l'Ravina ihachi treifa nami takriv v'tatir lav shebesocha. But maybe that's taka the halacha. Maybe the halacha would be that just like when you bring a minchas ha'omer from chadash, the act of placing on the mizbeach is matir chadash. Maybe placing a treifa animal on the mizbeach would be matir the prohibition of treifa, such that the kohanim could eat the meat of this treifa animal. Maybe that's what I would have thought had the Torah not prohibited treifa. Maybe that's why I need a pasuk. So ela prichachi. So the Gemara says, but you still have a problem, because mala minchas ha'omer shekein mitzvasa bekach. But one second, the Torah commands me to place a mincha made from chadash grain on the mizbeach. So how can you analogize that to a treifa? There's no mitzvah specifically to place a treifa animal on the mizbeach. So why would I think that a treifa is comparable to a minchas ha'omer? Just because the Torah tells me to put a minchas ha'omer on the mizbeach, even though there's issues of non-consumability to the item, don't compare that to a treifa. The Torah mandates to put it on the mizbeach, and that's why I'm allowed to. But where would I get from there that I could put a treifa on the mizbeach? There's no mandate. There's no specific instruction by the Torah to place a treifa on the mizbeach. So you're again back to the same question. Why do I need a pasuk to aser a treifa as a korban when I would know that from svara? So Reish Lakish Omar mishum di'ika l'meimar mifatem haketores yochiach sha'aser lahejot umuter legavoa. So Reish Lakish says, I'll give you a reason, because maybe a treifa is comparable to the guy who prepares the ketores. The guy who prepares the ketores prepares it from 11 spices, and those spices, the preparer is not allowed to do that for personal use. You can't take the 11 known incense items and prepare them for personal use. If you do that, you're doing something that's usur. So you see, the Torah says something that's usur for humans can be placed on the mizbeach. So maybe that's the same thing with a treifa. Something, even though it's usur for humans, maybe it could be placed on the mizbeach. So the Gemara says, what do you mean mefatem? What do you mean the preparer of the ketoris? That's gavru. He's not prohibited or permitted. He's a human being. Ella pitomakdor. So we have to just modify the language of Reish Lakish. What he really means to say is not the mefatem ketoris, but the prepared incense. The prepared incense is the issue that we're discussing. Yochiach sha'aseh lahedjot u'muter legavoa. You see an example where the Torah says it's usur for a human being to mix the spices in that way for personal use, and yet it's mutter for the mizbeach. So maybe that's the same thing by a treifa. But the Gemara says malapito maktor shekein mitzvaso bekach. Once again, we have the same question. Yes, but the Torah mandates to do it that way. There's no mandate in the Torah to bring a treifa, so you can't compare the two. Marbarei de Ravina Amar Mishum Diika Lameimer Shabbos Yochichu Shasur Lahedjot Umuteres Legavoa. Oh, so I'll bring you a proof from Shabbos. Even though on Shabbos I'm not allowed to do malacha, but I'm allowed to do malacha for the sake of karbanos. So you see that Shabbos is an example of where it's permitted to do it sacrificially, but it's not permitted for human purposes. So maybe I would say the same argument by a treifa. I can bring it as a korban, but I can't consume it myself. So the Gemara says, no, Malo Shabbos shekain hutra michlala etzel hedjot b'mila. But 1 second, says the Gemara, even when it comes to human activity, the Torah sometimes permits me to violate Shabbos, or that Shabbos is alleviated, shall we say, when it comes to the mitzvah of bris milah. So you see, even for human needs, I'm allowed to violate Shabbos, not just for sacrificial needs. So it's not a good analogy to treifa, where there's never a permissibility to eat a treifa. So atu mila tzarach hedjot, he who mila mitzvahi. What kind of statement is that? Because the Torah permits me to do a bris. A bris is not human needs. A bris is serving Hashem. So essentially, all we're arguing is that Shabbos is a time when it's for my personal needs, I'm never allowed to violate Shabbos. But when it's for divine needs, I am allowed to violate Shabbos, whether it's for a mitzvah or for a korban. So maybe that's the same thing by a treifa. So the Gemara says, Elamalo Shabbos shekein mitzvasa bekach. So we're back to the same challenge. When it comes to Shabbos, the Torah mandates, bring the korban tamid on Shabbos, bring the korban musaf on Shabbos. The Torah specifically instructs me to do it dafka on Shabbos. But where is there a specific instruction to bring a treifa animal? So therefore, why would I think to analogize it to the laws of Shabbos? So Rav Ada bar Abba Amar Mishum De'ika Lamemar Kilayim Yochichu Shasrun Lahedjot Umutar Legavoa. He gives a different answer. He says, maybe I could analogize treifa to the laws of shatnez. Shatnez, for me to wear in my suit, is clearly prohibited. For human needs, I can't wear shatnez. But I am allowed to wear shatnez for sacrificial purposes. The Kohen's vestments are made from shatnez, from wool and linen mixed together. So therefore, just like the Torah permits shatnez when it's prohibited for human needs, maybe the Torah would also permit a treifa, even though it's prohibited for human needs. But malakilayim shekain hutru michlal and eitzel hedjud b'tzitzis. Same question. 1 second. The Torah also permits shatnez for human needs, for me to put on my tzitzis, because we know from the Gemara and Yevamos that I'm allowed to have my strings made out of wool and my garment made out of linen. So you see that shatnez is permitted for human purposes at certain times. So maybe that's not a good analogy, where treif is never permitted. But atu tzitzis tzarach hedjod mitzvahu. What are you talking about? That's not called human needs. Wearing tzitzis is serving Hashem. So maybe only when it comes to serving Hashem is kalayim permitted, but for human personal use, it's not permitted. Say the same thing by a treifa. Ela malakilayim shemitzvasu b'kat. So we're back to the same argument, which is it's still not comparable to shatnez, because shatnez, the Torah mandates. The Kohen must wear shatnez in his garments when he does the avoda. But there is no such statement in the Torah that you must bring a treifa animal in order to fulfill the avoda. So therefore, once again, we're left with a quandary. Why do I need a pasuk to tell me that a treifa animal cannot be brought as a carbon? Use the simple kal v'chomer. If I can't bring a balmum, then surely I shouldn't be able to bring a treifa. And why would I think that a treifa animal is permitted? We're still left with this question, and it's going to be analyzed further, Mitzvah Shem, tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.